I woke up in a new world, and the first thing I felt was a toddler clinging to my leg. "Daddy, I'm hungry." I was completely bewildered. I looked up and locked eyes with a gaze that could freeze water. A woman stood there, an icy billionaire CEO, and slapped a paternity test onto my chest. "The child is yours. Either you marry me, or I make you disappear from the face of the earth." I chuckled, a smirk playing on my lips. In a blur of motion, I spun her around and pinned her against the wall. "I'll marry you, but my dowry is $100 million. Want a second kid? That's another $100 million. I leaned in closer. "And one more thing. At home, I call the shots. You'd better get used to calling me hubby." The CEO trembled with rage. She delivered a sharp kick that sent me flying. The next second, the toddler pulled out a megaphone and aimed it at the office window, screaming to the streets below, "My daddy is bullying my mommy. Mommy is trying to find me a stepdad." Looking down at the swarm of reporters gathering below, the CEO's face turned a sickly shade of green. My head felt like it was splitting open. I woke up on a rock-hard sofa, the hangover pulsing behind my eyes. Unfamiliar ceiling, unfamiliar air, and the sterile smell of disinfectant. Where was I? I propped myself up. Before I could process anything, a soft little projectile launched itself at me. He hugged my thigh, looking up with a face carved from porcelain. "Daddy, Leo finally found you." The voice was sweet and childish, thick with tears and grievance. I looked down at the red-rimmed eyes and the tears rolling down his cheeks like pearls. He hugged tighter, wailing louder. "Daddy doesn't want Leo anymore? Leo is so hungry." I was totally lost. Just then, click, the door swung open. A blast of cold air rushed in, making me shiver. A woman stood in the doorway, backlit. I couldn't see her face clearly, but her aura screamed, "Keep away." It was cold enough to freeze a man into an ice sculpture from 30 feet away. Behind her stood two bodyguards in suits and sunglasses, looking like twin iron towers. The woman walked in. The click-clack of her high heels sounded like a hammer striking my heart. She slapped a piece of A4 paper against my face. "Read it." Her voice was colder than the air conditioning. I peeled the paper off my face. Paternity test. Jack Miller. Leo Sterling. Probability of paternity, 999%. Jack Miller was my name. I looked at the kid still glued to my leg. So, this was my seed. I traveled to a parallel universe, and the first thing I get is a surprise fatherhood package. I looked up and finally saw the woman's face clearly. She was beautiful, aggressively beautiful, a beauty carved into her bones. Her features were flawless, skin white as snow, but her eyes held absolutely no warmth. She looked down at me like I was an ant. "DNA shows he's your spawn. I'm giving you two choices. 1, marry me. 2, I make you vanish from this world completely." Her assistant added helpfully, "Mr. Miller, Ms. Sterling means vanish in the physical sense." "Oh, Ms. Sterling," fragments of memory that didn't belong to me suddenly flooded my brain. Elena Sterling, billionaire CEO of the Sterling Group, the ice queen of the business world. Ruthless. And me? The original owner of this body was also named Jack Miller, a broke orphan with a mountain of debt and 0 achievements. Interesting. This was getting very interesting. I looked at the report, then at her icy face, and suddenly laughed. While she watched, thinking I'd been scared stupid, I slowly stood up. Just as she frowned, I moved. Lightning fast. By the time she reacted, she was already pinned against the cold wall. Thud. The bodyguards instantly drew their weapons, but I didn't care. I pressed close to her, close enough to smell the cool, clean fragrance of her hair, close enough to see her pupils dilate in shock. "Hey, beautiful. Forced marriage is such a turn-off, don't you think?" I blew a breath of hot air against her ear, satisfied to see the tips turn red. "I'll marry you, but I want $100 million. Not a penny less." Her body went rigid. My grin widened. "Also, after we're married, I control the finances, and you do the housework. And, at night, you keep the bed warm for hubby." The ice in Elena Sterling's eyes finally melted, replaced by a raging fire. "In your dreams." She hissed the words through gritted teeth and kneed upward. But I was ready. I dodged easily. Humiliated and furious, she gathered all her strength and drove her 4-inch stiletto heel into my chest. "Get out." I let the kick send me flying back onto the sofa. My chest throbbed. Okay, this woman had a kick. I rubbed my chest, chuckling as I watched her heaving bosom. This billionaire CEO didn't seem that hard to handle. Elena was shaking with rage. She pointed a trembling finger at me and gave the death order to her bodyguards. "Throw him off the 38th floor. The 2 men in black walked toward me, expressionless killing machines. I was just about to stretch my muscles when the little munchkin in my arms exploded. Leo hugged my leg with a death grip, crying his heart out. Don't throw my daddy. Wah. Mommy is a bad guy. Daddy, run. He cried while looking at Elena with big, accusing, tear-filled eyes. Elena's expression didn't waver. Her gaze remained icy. I thought, that's not going to work, son. The next second, Leo's crying stopped abruptly. He wiped his tears with lightning speed and pulled something out of his little backpack, a bright red toy megaphone with cartoon stickers on it. My eyelid twitched. That was professional equipment. Leo hugged the megaphone and sprinted to the floor-to-ceiling window. He took a deep breath and flipped the switch. A screech of feedback pierced the air, followed by his high-pitched voice amplified to boom across the entire downtown district. Uncles and aunties downstairs, look up here. My mommy is an evil capitalist. She's trying to find me a stepdad, and she's going to throw my real daddy off the 38th floor. My daddy is so pitiful. I don't want to be an orphan. The screams got louder and more tragic with every sentence. I watched Elena's face change color in real time. Her assistant rushed in, phone in hand, looking panicked. Ms. Sterling, bad news. Downstairs, the lobby is swarming with reporters. Our stock price just started diving. Elena strode to the window and looked down. Below, a dark mass of people. Flashes popped like starlight. Her face went from angry red to shocked white, and finally to a suffocated green. Brilliant. I crossed my arms, leaning back on the sofa, enjoying the show. So, Ms. Sterling, how about it? Do we talk about my $100 million dowry, or do we talk about your market cap evaporating by $1 billion tomorrow? Elena spun around, looking like she wanted to eat me alive. She stared at me, chest heaving with rage. I could hear her grinding her teeth. A long silence. She squeezed 3 words out. You win this. I smiled. Bring me the contract. The assistant quickly printed a marriage agreement. Elena didn't even read it. She slashed her signature across the bottom and slammed the contract and pen in front of me. I picked up the pen and glanced at it. Simple content. Contract marriage. Quid pro quo. Under Party B, I signed Jack Miller with a flourish. Then, my eyes moved to Party A. Under Elena's murderous gaze, I raised the pen and added 2 words next to Party Big Daddy. After signing, I added a supplementary clause at the very end. Note, Party A, Big Daddy, retains final interpretation rights of this contract. I blew on the ink to dry it and handed it to the dumbfounded assistant. File it. 1 copy for each. Elena stared at the glaring words on the contract, swayed on her feet, and almost passed out. She gripped the table, glaring at me. Jack Miller, this is just the beginning. I will make you regret this. I smiled without speaking, grabbed my jacket from the sofa, and waved to Leo. Son, go home with Daddy. Leo immediately turned off the megaphone, ran over on his short legs, and looked at me with pure worship. The real game was just starting. Regret? I didn't know how to spell the word. I thought going home meant going back to the original owner's rat hole apartment. Unexpectedly, Elena's assistant packed us both into a Rolls-Royce. The car drove up the winding canyon roads and stopped in front of a futuristic mansion in the hills. Mr. Miller, Master Leo, this is your home now. The assistant respectfully opened the door. I got out and looked at the mansion, which looked like a base from a sci-fi movie. Poverty really had limited my imagination. Leo whispered in my ear, Daddy, Mommy has too much money to spend. That's why she needs a man to help her spend it. Well said. Definitely my seed. We walked into the villa. Elena had already changed in a loungewear, sitting on the living room sofa, waiting for us with a cold face. On the coffee table in front of her sat a thick stack of documents. Come here, she commanded. I led Leo over and sat down opposite her, sprawling comfortably. She pushed the stack of documents toward me. This is the cohabitation agreement. 20 pages, 108 clauses. Memorize it. I flipped through it casually. Clause 1. No physical contact with Party A, Elena Sterling, unless absolutely necessary. Clause 10. Entry into Party A's study, bedroom, and walk-in closet is forbidden without permission. Clause 53. Restroom usage must not exceed 10 minutes to prevent odors. I laughed out loud. Ms. Sterling, is this a cohabitation agreement? Or a dog ownership contract? Sorry, I'm not a dog. Right in front of her face, I took the thick agreement and tore it in half. Elena's eyes went wide. She shot up from the sofa. Jack Miller, don't push your luck. I tossed the confetti into the trash can, pulled a blank sheet of paper and a pen from the table. I don't recognize your rules. In this house, you listen to me. I scribbled a few large words on the paper. The new big 3 rules. Elena was so mad her lips were trembling. I ignored her completely and read aloud. Rule 1. I'm responsible for looking good and raising the kid. You're responsible for making money. Rule 2. I do the cooking, but what we eat and when we eat is my call. Rule 3. Without my permission, you're not allowed to step 1 foot into my bedroom, especially at night. After all, as a man, I need to protect my virtue. I slapped the paper onto the table and looked at her provocatively. Leo immediately transformed into the ultimate wingman, nodding vigorously. Right? Daddy is right. Daddy makes the best barbecue ribs. Mommy only eats salad. Daddy says men need to sleep early at night or they won't grow tall. I watched as father and son teamed up. Elena's face was a kaleidoscope of colors. She pointed at us, stuttering, unable to get a word out. Her chest heaved violently. Clearly, she was about to explode. But the moment she thought about the reporters downtown and her plummeting stock price, she had to force all that anger back down. Finally, with a dark face, she let out a heavy humph and stomped upstairs. Was that a yes? I flashed a peace sign at Leo. Round 1, battle for household dominance. Victory. That night, I inspected Elena's kitchen. It was bigger than my old apartment and cost a fortune. Inside the massive fridge, I found 3 packs of instant noodles and 1 egg. I cooked a deluxe bowl of ramen with an egg for her, the kid, and myself. When the assistant brought the 3 steaming bowls to the table, Elena, who had just come downstairs, looked thunderous. She stared at me, her eyes saying, "You expect me to eat this?" I shrugged innocently. Can't help it. That's all that was in the fridge. New rule number 2. I decide what we eat. Leo was already slurping away, mumbling praise through a mouthful of noodles. Daddy makes the best noodles in the whole world. Elena glared at the noodles, then at me. Finally, faced with hunger, she chose compromise. She picked up her chopsticks and, looking utterly disgusted, began to eat in small, dainty bites. Watching her look so aggrieved yet forced to eat, I felt fantastic. Elena Sterling, this is just the start. I'm going to melt you down drop by drop. The next day, I was still sleeping when the phone rang. It was Leo's kindergarten teacher. Is this Leo Sterling's parent? Leo got into a fight at school. Can you come in? I frowned. Leo was mischievous, but he wasn't the type to start trouble. Is it serious? The other child is injured. The parents are very emotional. You'd better get here fast. The teacher sounded stressed. I hung up and dialed Elena. It rang for a long time before she picked up. What? Her standard icy tone. Leo fought at school. Teacher needs us there. Silence on the other end for a few seconds. I'm in a critical transnational conference. Handle these small matters yourself. Click. The call was ruthlessly disconnected. Small matters? Her son fighting at school was trivial to her. A nameless fire surged in my chest. Daddy, what's wrong? Leo asked, a piece of rib hanging from his mouth. I pushed down the anger and rubbed his head. Nothing. Finish eating. Daddy has to go out. I drove the most inconspicuous Volkswagen from Elena's garage to the city's most prestigious private preschool, Preston Academy. As soon as I reached the office door, I heard a woman screeching inside. Fatherless little bastard. No breeding at all. Look what he did to my son. Expel him. Immediately. Right now. I pushed the door open. A woman in a Chanel suit, dripping with jewelry, was pointing a finger at Leo's nose, screaming abuse. Leo stood there, his small body rigid, lips pressed tight. His eyes were red, but he wasn't crying. Next to him, a chubby boy smirked triumphantly, sporting only a tiny scratch. And the woman kept raving. Principal, I'm telling you, if you don't give me an explanation today, I'll have my husband tear this lousy school down. My anger spiked straight to the top of my skull. I strode over and pulled Leo behind me. Since when is it your turn to discipline my son? My voice wasn't loud, but the office instantly went silent. The bejeweled woman paused, then looked me up and down. Seeing my cheap clothes, her eyes filled with disdain. You're the daddy who popped out of nowhere? Like father, like son. Crooked stick, crooked shadow. I laughed. Lady, whether my son has breeding isn't for you to judge. Considering your own manners seem to have been bought from a discount bin. You, her face twisted. You dare insult me? Do you know who my husband is? My husband is Councilman Pembroke from the Education Board. Oh, the councilman's wife. I nodded as if realized. My apologies. The principal was sweating buckets, trying to mediate. Mr. Miller, Mrs. Pembroke, let's calm down. Kids fight, it's normal. Normal my ass. Mrs. Pembroke shrieked. Expel him, or I'll have my husband shut you down tomorrow. She pulled out her phone, looking arrogant, ready to call on the cavalry. The principal turned pale, caught in the middle. I patted Leo's shoulder, signaling him to relax. Then, I turned to the principal, voice calm. Principal, if we're going to solve this, we need the full story. I want to see the security footage. Looking like he'd been granted amnesty, the principal immediately led us to the security room. The footage was clear. It started with Mrs. Pembroke's son grabbing a teddy bear from a little girl and pushing her down. Leo stepped in to argue. The chubby kid sneered. My mommy said she's a pauper. She doesn't deserve nice toys. Then he shoved Leo. Leo fought back. Once the video ended, the room went quiet. Mrs. Pembroke's face flashed green and white, but she doubled down. He still hit him. He injured my son. I ignored her and crouched down in front of the little girl who had been pushed. Sweetie, tell Uncle. Does he bully you often? The girl looked fearfully at Pembroke's son, then nodded. I looked at the fat kid, tone gentle and guiding. Hey kiddo, tell Uncle, who taught you that bully whoever is poor line? The kid, having zero filter, pointed at his mom and shouted, Mommy taught me. Mommy says those poor ghosts are only fit to carry our shoes. Slap, Mrs. Pembroke slapped her son in a panic. What are you babbling about? The expressions on the teachers' and parents' faces were priceless. Mrs. Pembroke tried to argue, but I had already calmly pulled out my phone. Mrs. Pembroke, was it? I pressed play. Her earlier screeching. My husband is Councilman Pembroke. Echoed clearly through the room. He smiled to hear. So, Mrs. Pembroke, shall we continue discussing this little fight? Or should we discuss how you abuse your husband's power and how you educate your child? Her face went white as a sheet. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. Finally, under everyone's gaze, she suffered the ultimate humiliation. She apologized to me, Leo, and the little girl. Then, she grabbed her son and fled like a rat. Crisis averted. Leo peeked out from behind me, hugging my arm, eyes shining with stars of worship. Daddy, you're amazing. I rubbed his head and pulled him into a hug. But my mind was on something else. Elena Sterling, did you see that? You weren't there when needed. But your husband? Im no pushive. When I got home with Leo, Elena still wasn't back. The barbecue ribs, I made it gone cold. I reheated the food, and Leo and I ate dinner in quiet peace. Throughout the whole meal, I didn't think once about calling Elena. Some things only need to be explained once. If she didn't care, I wouldn't waste my breath. At 9 p.m., the front door finally opened. Elena walked in, looking exhausted. She kicked off her heels and paused when she saw me playing puzzles with Leo in the living room. She probably didn't expect me to still be there. Is it handled? She asked, a trace of uncertainty in her voice. I didn't look up. Yeah. They didn't give you trouble? No. She seemed to want to ask more, but I didn't want to answer. I kept playing with Leo, treating her like air. An awkward silence filled the room. Leo broke the ice. Mommy, Daddy was super cool today. He vividly described the events at the preschool in his childish language, naturally highlighting my heroism and Mrs. Pembroke's arrogance. Elena listened quietly. Her expression shifted from fatigue to surprise, then to something complex. The way she looked at me changed. It wasn't just scrutiny anymore. It was intense curiosity. She couldn't understand how a man who was listed in her reports as mediocre and unaccomplished could so easily dismantle a councilman's wife. What did you actually do before? She finally couldn't help asking. I placed the last puzzle piece and stood up. I was a bum. I yawned lazily, taking the kid to bed. Good night, Ms. Sterling. I held Leo's hand and walked past her without a second glance. Deep in the night, I got thirsty and went down for water. Passing the study, I saw the door ajar, lights spilling out. Curiosity got the better of me. I peeked in. Elena was sitting at her computer. On the screen, playing on a loop, was the security footage from the preschool. She wasn't fast-forwarding. She just watched it over and over. Watching how I calmly walked into the office, how I silenced that woman with a few words, how I produced the evidence that crushed the opposition. Her profile, lit by the screen, looked bewildered. The slouching, smooth-talking guy she knew versus the calm, commanding man in the video. Were they really the same person? The massive contrast was driving her crazy. I didn't disturb her. I went back to my room like a ghost. The next morning, I got up to make breakfast. Elena, surprisingly, hadn't left for work yet. She sat at the dining table. Beside my sandwiches, there was a cup of coffee her assistant had just delivered. She looked at me, expression unnatural. Thank you for yesterday. Her voice was soft, laced with awkwardness. I raised an eyebrow and bit into my sandwich. Thanking me? Is my 100 million ready? She choked, eyebrows knitting together immediately. But surprisingly, she didn't blow up like usual. She just scoffed. Don't push it. She picked up her sandwich and ate in small bites. I noticed she didn't touch the coffee she usually drank every day. After breakfast, she went to work. I took Leo to school. Before leaving, Leo suddenly ran back into the villa and came out with something. He shoved it into my hands. A brand new, unopened high-end tumbler. Daddy, Mommy asked Annie Wong to buy this morning. She told me to give it to you. She says your stomach is bad, so drink hot water. I stared at the tumbler, stunned. The iceberg seemed to have a crack in it. And for the first time, I felt a little something different for this wife in name only. A novel feeling. The Sterling Group's anniversary gala claimed to gather all the city's elite. Elena required me to attend as family. Looking at the rows of expensive bespoke suits she'd bought me, I unhesitatingly grabbed a t-shirt and jeans. When she saw my outfit, her beautiful brows tied into a knot. You're wearing that? Why not? I spread my hands. Comfy. Easy to move in when I hit the buffet. She took a deep breath, seemingly trying to convince herself not to murder me. Whatever. She clicked away in her heels, nose in the air. The ballroom was a sea of lights and luxury. As soon as Elena appeared, she was the center of attention. And me, by her side in a t-shirt and jeans, looked like Donald Duck crashing Swan Lake. Totally out of place. The gazes directed at me were full of inquiry, disdain, and mockery. Who's the guy? Her driver, dressed like a delivery boy. How'd he get in? Elena's face was cooling rapidly. Just then, a man in a white suit, looking dashing and elegant, approached with a wine glass. He was handsome, wearing a gentle smile that didn't reach his eyes. Elena, long time no see. The man spoke, but his eyes drifted pointedly to me, feigning surprise. Is this your new driver? His info popped into my brain instantly. Julian Thorne, heir to the Thorne Group. Elena's business rival and her most persistent suitor. Elena's face darkened, ready to retort. But I beat her to it. I reached out and wrapped my arm around her slender waist. She stiffened, instinctively wanting to pull away, but I held her firm. I flashed a dazzling smile at Julian. I'm her husband. We couldn't afford a driver, so usually I just scooter her to work. It's more eco-friendly. Uffed. Someone nearby snorted with laughter. The expressions in the room were priceless. Julian's smile froze for a second, but he recovered quickly. He raised his glass to me. Mr. Miller, I presume. Apologies. You don't look like someone from our circle. Where do you work? The question was toxic. He was implying I wasn't good enough for her. Elena tensed up, clearly worried for me. I didn't care. I casually picked up a glass of orange juice from a passing tray. I'm unemployed. My wife keeps me. I took a sip. Unlike Mr. Thorne, busy with a million things, successful career, yet still finding time to worry about another man's household. Tough job. Every word implied he was a busybody. Julian's face went pitch black. Before he could explode, a sweet voice popped up behind us. Hello, Uncle Julian. Leo appeared out of nowhere, looking dapper in a tiny suit. He looked up at Julian with innocent eyes. Uncle Julian, Mommy said handsome men are unreliable. That's why Daddy is perfect. Kill shot. Julian's face was beyond black. It was burnt charcoal. He looked at our family of three, couldn't maintain his composure, scoffed, and walked away. I clearly saw the corner of Elena's mouth twitch upward as she watched Julian retreat in defeat. It was just for a second, but I caught it. Her arm and mine wasn't so stiff anymore. I leaned down and whispered, Wifey, you look great when you smile. Her face went whoosh red. She glared at me, annoyed. But that look, it wasn't cold. It was flirtatious. My heart skipped a beat for no reason. The antics at the gala made Elena see me in a new light. But with that came deeper suspicion. How could a man who rode scooters, ate instant noodles, and wore cheap clothes hold his own in high society and shut down Julian Thorne effortlessly? Logic failed her. So, she used her resources to secretly investigate my past. A few days later, she walked into my room with a detailed report. This was the first time she'd voluntarily entered my territory. Who are you really? She slammed the report down. It chronicled the original owner's lackluster life. Orphan, third-rate college, fired from a dozen jobs, massive debt, standard societal loser. This report matched the memories in my head perfectly, but that made it even weirder. I leaned back on the bed, lazily flipping through the pages. Your husband, doesn't it say right here? Jack Miller, male, 28, married, spouse, Elena Sterling. I pointed to the last line and winked. Her expression grew more confused. No, you and the man in this report. You're two different people. Do you think there's something wrong with your report? Or something wrong with your eyes? I countered. Stumped, she gave me a long look and walked out. She was a woman who worshipped data and rules. When reality deviated wildly from the data, she fell into self-doubt. She didn't know she was investigating a dead soul. After she left, the smile on my face vanished. She could investigate me. I could investigate her. Leo's birth had always been a mystery to me. How could a woman like Elena Sterling make such a low-level mistake, getting involved with a guy like the original Jack, let alone having a child? Using the hacker skills I possessed from my past life as a top-tier corporate spy, I silently infiltrated Elena's private computer and her company servers. I quickly found an anomaly. Elena's memory of the night of conception was very blurry. She only remembered attending a business party hosted by Julian Thorne 5 years ago. She drank one glass of wine, and then things went black. When she woke up, she was in a hotel room, with the original Jack passed out beside her. I immediately pinpointed the hotel. I followed the digital trail, hacking into the hotel's archive from 5 years ago. Most surveillance and logs have been wiped clean. Professional, clean, no traces left. But they didn't expect to run into me. I spent the entire night recovering fragmented data from layers of overwritten digital ruins. A blurry hallway video. In the footage, Julian Thorne's assistant was supporting a man who was dead drunk, opening the door to Elena's room. That man was the original Jack. My heart sank. This wasn't an accident. It was a complete conspiracy. The original Jack was just a tool being used, and the puppet master was Julian Thorne. What was his endgame? Ruin Elena. I shut the laptop, feeling a surge of irritation. I just want to be a spectator, have some fun, maybe mooch a bit. But now, it seemed I was unknowingly dragged into the deep end. The door creaked open a crack. Leo poked his little head in. "Daddy, why aren't you sleeping?" I wave him over. He scrambled up onto my bed. "Leo, let me ask you something." I tested the waters. If Mommy found you a stepdad, would you be okay with that? Leo instantly looked guarded, his little face falling. "Daddy, do you not want me and Mommy anymore? If you run away, I'll post on the internet that you abandoned us. And I'll leak the Big Daddy contract." Seeing him about to cry, the softest part of my heart was touched. I pulled him into a hug. "Silly kid, how could Daddy not want you?" I wasn't the lonely Jack Miller anymore. I had a son and a wife in name. I had to protect this home. I had to solve this puzzle. After the events at the preschool and the gala, Elena's attitude toward me shifted subtly. She stopped giving me the cold shoulder. Her face was still cool, but she didn't treat me like air anymore. She started unconsciously courting her husband. Of course, in an extremely clumsy and awkward way. For example, she started cutting back on work to be home more. One day I came home to find the villa's kitchen billowing smoke, alarms screaming. I rushed in to find our noble CO standing covered in soot amidst the wreckage. At her feet lay a half-burned copy of Home Cooking for Beginners. On the counter sat a plate of black, unidentifiable matter. She looked at me, looking helpless for the first time. I wanted to learn to cook. I looked at the dark cuisine and silently picked up the phone to order takeout. Or the other day, I mentioned offhandedly that I had a cold. That night, she snuck into my room to tuck me in. Result, she piled a 10-pound down duvet on me, waking me up from heat stroke. The next day, she had her assistant buy a mountain of cold medicine. She piled the boxes in front of me, commanding seriously, "Eat all of this." I picked up a box. "Lady, this is for viral flu. I have a chill, and this one is for toddlers." She froze, a blush of embarrassment rising on her pale face. She also bought me piles of luxury suits she thought were tasteful. I didn't even look at them, shoving them to the back of the closet and sticking to my tees and shorts. She finally snapped one morning, blocking my path. "I spent millions on those clothes. Why won't you wear them?" She was fuming. "Uncomfortable," I said righteously, interferes with my lying down. She was too angry to speak. Leo, sipping milk nearby, sighed like an old man. "Mommy, that's not how you chase a man. The book says to grab a man's heart. You have to grab his stomach. The stuff you cook, even the dog wouldn't eat." Elena's face turned liver red. She glared at Leo, then at me, and stormed back to her room. I thought she'd give up, but that night my cold got worse. I started burning up. Through the fever haze, I felt someone wiping my forehead and palms with a warm towel, over and over. The movements were clumsy. She dripped water in my eye a few times, but gentle. I struggled to open my eyes. Elena was sitting by my bed. Lights off, just moonlight. She was focused entirely on taking care of me. Her hair was messy, her face written with worry. That wasn't the Ice Queen CEO. That was just a normal woman worried about her husband. Looking at her, something inside me caved in completely. When I woke up the next morning, the fever broke. I opened my eyes to see her asleep, slumped over the edge of my bed. Curled up, sleeping restlessly, exhaustion hanging on her long lashes. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, gilding her in soft gold. I reached out, wanted to touch her face. Before I could, she woke up. Eye contact. She snapped awake, panic flashing across her face as she stood up abruptly. You're up? How do you feel? She feigned calm, but her eyes dodged mine. Looking at her bloodshot eyes, warmth flooded my chest. I'm fine. I sat up and looked at her. Elena. You're kind of cute when you take care of people. Her face went boom, red all over, like a ripe apple. I realized for the first time that when this iceberg got shy, it was lethal. Trouble hit the Sterling Group on a calm afternoon. Julian Thorne made his move. Frustrated by his failed pursuit, he finally bared his fangs. Elena's assistant, Chloe, also her best friend, burst into the villa, looking panicked. Elena. Bad news. It's a disaster. At the time, I was on a living room rug playing Uno with Elena and Leo. This was our new family activity. Elena sucked at it. Leo and I teamed up to crush her constantly, but she enjoyed it. Her smile was relaxed and bright, something I'd never seen before. Chloe's intrusion shattered the warmth. Elena's face instantly dropped. Slow down. What is it? Julian initiated a hostile takeover in the stock market, and the billion-dollar downtown landmark project we're bidding on. The core proposal was leaked. Thorne Group submitted an identical bid this morning, just slightly undercutting our price. Chloe's voice trembled. There must be a mole inside the company. Elena swayed, her face draining of color. That project was her gamble for the company's future. If it failed, it wasn't just a financial loss. The foundation of the group would crack. Over the next few days, bad news piled up. Banks called in loans. Stock prices plummeted off a cliff. Billions in market cap evaporated in 2 days. Shareholders applied pressure. The board called an emergency meeting to remove Elena as CEO. When a wall falls, everyone pushes. Partners who used to kiss her ass now avoided her like the plague. She locked herself in the study, chain-smoking, wasting away rapidly. It was the first time I saw her so fragile. She wasn't the high and mighty queen anymore, just a woman shouldering the world, about to be crushed. She stood alone by the massive window, looking at the night view, her back radiating despair. I walked over and hugged her gently from behind. She stiffened, but didn't push me away. It'll be okay, I whispered. Her phone rang. It was Julian Thorne. She answered on speaker. Julian's smug, hypocritical voice oozed out. Elena, how is it? Do you like the surprise I gave you? Now, if you agree to one condition, I'll stop immediately. I'll even help make Sterling Group more glorious than before. My condition is simple. Leave that pretty boy. Take the kid and come to me. I can overlook the bastard child. I'll even raise him as my own. Every word dripped with insult and filth. Elena began to shake, not from fear, but from pure rage. She said nothing. She hung up. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were terrifyingly red, yet strangely calm. Jack, take Leo and go. Find a safe place. Hi. Julian is a psycho. He'll do anything. This was the first time she actively tried to push me away, but it was to protect me. My heart clenched tight. I looked at her face, seeing her try so hard to be strong, and I suddenly laughed. I reached out, grabbed her chin, and forced her to look me in the eye. Elena Sterling, your man isn't dead yet. Since when is it your turn to arrange the funeral? My gaze was sharper and more serious than ever before. She froze, staring at me blankly. The man in front of her seemed to transform in an instant. The lazy slacker vibe vanished. He radiated the aura of a general commanding a battlefield, a powerful presence that made one feel safe. Give me full authority over the company. 3 days. I enunciated every word. I will help you take back everything you lost. With interest. In her deepest despair, Elena chose me. It was a gamble. She bet herself and the entire Sterling Group. She handed me the highest clearance, including all account keys and server root access. Jack, please. Her voice held a tremble of unconscious reliance. I sat in her expensive CEO chair and cracked my knuckles. My demeanor shifted completely. Laziness gone. Razors out. Don't worry. Your husband specializes in fixing impossible. I opened the laptop. My hands flew across the keyboard. Lines of complex code cascaded down the screen like a waterfall. Chloe stood to the side, jaw on the floor. She couldn't imagine that the man who usually cooked ramen and cracked dirty jokes was a god-tier hacker. It took me 1 day, analyzing internal emails, fund flows, and network logs, combined with psychological profiling, I pinpointed the mole. Vice President Marcus Stone, a veteran who had followed Elena's father for decades. Her most trusted uncle. You never know a man's heart. I didn't expose him immediately. Cat and mouse is only fun if you play with your food. I forged a fake Plan B dataset and leaked it through a seemingly secure channel. I knew Marcus would bite. He would rush to send this vital intel to Julian. Meanwhile, utilizing the information gap from my time travel, I reconnected with some old pros. One was Ghost, a top global hacker. One was Vulture, a financial predator on Wall Street. We used to wreak havoc in European markets together. One call. Screams of excitement on the other end. Small favor, I said flatly. Short a company called Thorn Group. I wanted to erase from the map in 3 days. Done. Anything for a brother. The trap was set. I had Elena play her part. Following my script, she contacted Julian. She acted humble, willing to negotiate, even considering his terms. Julian got cocky. He thought he'd won. He took all the bait. He started leveraging massively, mobilizing funds to attack the fake target I gave him, preparing the death blow for Sterling Group. He didn't know a net was closing over his head. For 2 days, I didn't sleep. Elena stayed by my side, bringing tea, massaging my shoulders, watching me command troops and move millions. Her eyes shifted from shock to curiosity and finally to obsession and reliance. Leo hugged my leg, eyes starry. Daddy, you look so cool. Cooler than Ultraman. I smiled and ruffled his hair. The night before the final battle, I shut the laptop, stood up and stretched. All pieces were in place. I looked at the city lights and turned to Elena. Let's go home and sleep. Tomorrow, we watch a show. Julian held a massive press conference. He wanted to announce his great victory of acquiring Sterling Group to the whole city and simultaneously crush Elena's spirit publicly. At the venue, he was dressed to the nines, basking in flashes and praise. Elena sat in the audience, pale, looking defeated. I sat next to her in my t-shirt and jeans, relaxed as if I were at the movies. Elena, don't be scared. I held her cold hand. She looked up, eyes full of trust. The conference hit its climax. Julian stood on stage, raising a glass to announce victory. I announced, starting today, Sterling Group will. Before he finished, the giant LED screen behind him went black. A second later, it lit up. It wasn't playing the Thorn Group promo. It was a high-def video. In the video, VP Marcus Stone was sneaking a USB drive into Julian's hand. Their transaction dialogue was crystal clear. Mr. Thorn, this is Elena's last card. Good. Once I break her, you're the new CEO. The crowd went wild. Julian's face went white instantly. Cut it. Cut it off. He screamed hysterically. But the tech crew seemed deaf. The screen changed. Audio played. It was a recording of Julian and his assistant, explicitly admitting to stealing trade secrets and market manipulation. The reporters went insane. Flashes blinded the room, capturing Julian's terror. But that wasn't the end. The screen showed the bombshell. A restored surveillance video from 5 years ago. The dashing Julian Thorn, pouring white powder into Elena's wine glass. Then, watching her drink it with a sickening, triumphant smile. Then, ordering his assistant to send a drunk man into her room. That man was the original Jack. The truth was out. The DNA test was real, but the whole thing was a trap designed by a predator. Julian wanted to use a bastard child and a scandal to ruin the proud Elena, forcing her to submit to him. He calculated everything, but he didn't calculate that Elena would endure it all for the child. And he certainly didn't calculate that 5 years later, a new soul would inhabit his tool. Elena watched the screen, trembling, not from anger, but from retroactive fear and disgust. All the pain and pressure of the last 5 years came from this man's venomous scheme. I stood up and pulled her onto the stage. I took the microphone from a stunned Julian. Holding Elena's hand, I spoke to every camera lens, articulating every word clearly. I don't care how my son came to be. I only know he is Jack Miller's son, and she is Jack Miller's wife. Anyone touches a hair on their heads, I will bury them. As my voice fell, the doors burst open. Police officers swarmed in, heading straight for the ashen-faced Julian. Mr. Julian Thorn, you are under arrest for corporate espionage and assault. Cold handcuffs clicked onto the wrists that were once so arrogant. Under the flashing lights, Elena couldn't hold it anymore. She turned and buried her face in my chest, sobbing uncontrollably. 5 years of grievance, pain, and fear poured out. I held her tight, patting her back. It's okay. It's all over. Julian went to prison. Thorn Group, hit by the arrest and a short-selling attack, collapsed overnight and declared bankruptcy. Sterling Group, with my help, not only survived but swallowed Thorn's market share, becoming stronger than ever. After the storm, life returned to calm. But something had fundamentally changed. Elena changed. She was no longer the ice queen who pushed people away. She smiled now. Real smiles. She started trying to make breakfast for me. Even though she still turned the kitchen into a disaster zone and the food tasted terrible, I ate every bite. She set aside her work to go to amusement parks with Leo and me, buying cotton candy and ice cream like a normal mom. The way she looked at me held no more scrutiny or suspicion, only overflowing tenderness and love. I knew the iceberg had completely melted. On my birthday, she gave me a huge surprise. She rented out the city's entire Ferris wheel. When the pod reached the very top, with the glittering city spread beneath our feet, she suddenly pulled a velvet box from her bag. She opened it. Inside was a simple but wildly expensive men's diamond ring. Then in that small space, she did something shocking. She got down on one knee. Our noble CEO, the billionaire queen, looked up at me with flushed cheeks, nervous and expectant. Jack Miller. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. Marry me. No, wait. You marry me. She was so nervous, she flubbed the line, her face turning redder. Watching her clumsy, adorable attempt, I couldn't help but laugh. I didn't help her up. Instead, I took the ring and slid it onto my own finger. Perfect fit. Then, under her surprised gaze, I leaned down and kissed her. A long, gentle kiss. Only when she was breathless did I let her go. I accept. Her eyes exploded with dazzling light. Just as she expected me to say something romantic and moving, I cleared my throat and put on a serious face. Proposal accepted. However, one question. I held up a finger. About that $100 million dowry. Will that be card or bank transfer? The emotion and surprise on Elena's face froze instantly. She stared at me blankly, processing. A few seconds later, realizing I wasn't joking, she laughed in exasperation and punched my chest. Jack Miller, can you be serious for once? It's a romantic moment, and you're thinking about your dowry. I laughed loudly and pulled her tight into my arms. Absolutely. Never forget your original intent, right? Leo, who had squeezed in between us at some point, looked up excitedly. Daddy, Mommy, did the money come through? When are you making me a sister to help spend it? Elena's face went whoosh red. She pinched my waist in embarrassment. Laughing, I held my wife in one arm and my son in the other, hugging them both. Under the night sky, the Ferris wheel turned slowly. The laughter of our family of three was brighter than the millions of lights in the city below. I looked up at the stars through the window. My life as a time-traveling slacker wasn't so bland after all. Actually, it was pretty sweet. Story complete, story complete.